morning, social media land. It is I, Merritt, founder and CEO of Master One Coaching, which is an intuitive leadership coaching practice based here in the Hudson Valley and with international reach. And I am joined by my very good, lovely, wonderful, fantastic friend, Melissa. And we come to you live just about every week for Leadership Live Friday, where we talk about leadership topics, what's happening in the world around the challenges of leadership, the joys of leadership, how it integrates with current events and the priorities. That's the word of the day, priorities of, of the world of work and the world of life. Anyway, so Melissa.
Hi.
So happy to have you here today. Melissa and I have many connections. We have, including being birthday twins, which is so exciting because I never met a birthday twin before you. And we are we worked together several years ago at where she still works at Arts Mid-Hudson in Poughkeepsie, New York, and became fast friends and have stayed that way and could talk for hours about all kinds of things. So I'm looking forward to spending this time with you today and highlighting your brilliance. Would you please tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Thank you for having me, number one. So I was born and raised in the Hudson Valley, and I'm the youngest child of 5. So that can tell you a little bit about why I went to a performance space for profession to start. And I went to school for theater and music. And then I did that for a little while. And really interestingly enough was we kind of talk about aha moments. And I was in a theater in Pennsylvania, and I was playing Maxine Andrews for the Andrews Sisters. And we were doing the show, and the entire audience was veterans. And I remember that we asked them in the beginning of the show to stand, right? To stand so we could, pay tribute to their contribution to our world. And very few of them stood, even though the entire audience was full of veterans. And then after we were done with the show, we got a standing ovation from these individuals. And that to me was just the most, I don't know what it was, but there was this moment where I was like, these people who have sacrificed their lives and exist, for my freedoms wouldn't stand for themselves to pay tribute to them, but would do it for me. And I just entertained them for an hour and a half, So at that point in time, I really kind of started looking inward and didn't feel as validated with that kind of career choice. Came back to the Hudson Valley, and then went and got my master's at Marist for public administration with a focus in nonprofit management. Started working at Arts Mid-Hudson, and that's where we are now. I have a lovely family that keep me on top of my toes as well. But yeah.
And we are both boy moms, so we share that as well.
Yep.
I actually never heard that story. That's a fascinating story about how honoring ourselves or not honoring ourselves, right? Really fascinating.
I was actually that story was what I wrote my paper on to get into grad school. And it was so funny because it's always, I'm better when someone gives me a very specific topic, right? Like, this is what you need to write about. Here's, where you can research. And of course, when you're going, it's like, you choose anything. And I just remember that moment sticking out so perfectly in my past, in my history, in my life. And I was like, no, this is so important to honor these people, and that's where it went.
Cool. Well, and so now you started out at Arts Mid-Hudson in doing because you had arts management experience beforehand. You were running a theater for a while with your husband, right?
Yes.
And hi, Andrew. And then, so you didn't come totally blind to Arts Mid-Hudson, but now you've risen up the ranks, and now you're the director of development and marketing.
Yes.
And also very active in the development community in the Hudson Valley and nationally too, to an extent, or involved in national organizations that are.
Yes. So I am on the board of the Mid-Hudson Valley Chapter for Association for Fundraising Professionals. And I have worked in different chairs on that board as well, from National Philanthropy Day, highlighting the good work that people are doing in our community, as well as being on the board of Theatre Untitled, which is this incredible theater in Harlem that does work with emerging artists and getting their voices heard, as well as working with youth and allowing the youth to explore and feel accepted in every kind of artistic outlet, which is, as you know, as a what do we say, a recovering
actor, yeah.
recovering actor, it's so important to feel that comfortability and and safety in being able to create. So that organization does that, and I'm also on the advisory board for the Academy of Music for Dutchess Community College.
Dang, girl. So this is a great actually segue into the conversation about boundaries and balance, because obviously you're doing such amazing work in so many different areas. And also, may I tell the quick story about your thesis? Is that okay? Or do you want to tell it?
Oh, no, go, you tell it. It's actually fun to hear from the people. That was really
so as an example of somebody like, powerhouse people doing amazing work and being able to do all the things, right? So when I met Melissa at Arts Mid-Hudson a few years ago, she was, I think were you pregnant when we met, maybe?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I didn't know you that well. And you were wrapping up your program in your graduate program. And we started talking about your birth plan. And you were like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this time off. And I'm going to be, this is what's going to happen is I'm going to be finishing up my program. And then right before I go into labor, I'm going to take a shower. And then I'm going to go to the hospital and have the baby. And we're all kind of like, okay.
Yeah,
sure you are. Melissa. Like, you're super organized, like super rock star organized, mind-blowingly organized. And I'm always in awe of that because I'm not that way at all. And I wish I were. So, but we're all kind of like, yeah, well, isn't that sweet that this first time mom thinks she can control everything? Well, darn it if you didn't, because it was an amazing moment. She's like, yeah, I'm in labor. I'm wrapping up my thesis. Yeah, between contractions. And I got to send it off. There it goes. Now I'm going to take a shower and then we're going to go to the hospital. And I was like, okay. And that's kind of everything I needed to know about you. I was like, now I understand. I got a great, clear picture. That was fantastic. It was amazing. And you have two beautiful boys to show for it.
Thank you.
So awesome. Talk about manifesting.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
This is the way it's going to be. And
yes.
I'm going to make it that way. And it's going to work out perfectly. And it did. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the boundaries and the balance piece of it, though, because that does change as our priorities and our responsibilities change, whether we choose to have a family or hi, Andrew. Like, wait. Hi. You can see Andrew and their two little boys there. So glad to have you here today. And if anybody else wants to chime in with a question or a comment for Melissa or me, that's great. We'd love to see you. So let's talk a little bit about this boundaries and this balance piece. And I'm gonna fold it into some of our other topics that we want to touch on. So one is passion, and one is that idea of social impact, which you did kind of briefly pull in when you're talking about the work that you wanted to do beyond the entertainment side of your work. So I'm going to ask a broad question and say, how do you identify and stick to your boundaries?
Well,
you need more than that? Did I give you more than that?
Yeah. It's difficult, right? I mean, we've had the conversation about that you need to surround yourself with people who will be your mirror, right? I have a great support system of friends and family, close knit, that will tell me when I'm being ridiculous and tell me, but will also let me go. It's a work. It's a constant. It's constant work, and it's a constant self-reflection, right? Like, what is important in this moment? What is important, altogether, right? Because there are things that are important in terms of I love a to-do list, right? Like, there are things that are priorities on that to-do list, but there's life, right? Life is not stagnant. So I just can't have my to-do list and be like, nothing is going to happen around me today, and I'm going to get all of these things done. Boy, would I like that. But that's not what happens. And so for someone like me, who is a planner, I like to plan, I like to be organized, I have to find those places to give a little, but always know what my priorities are. My husband being a person who's very good at saying to me, you always say that your priority is this. Are you doing that? And I'll be like, no. You know, but it's true. I think that it's that dual mirror, right? Like being able to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, no, these are my things. And also have people, when for some reason your mirror is clouded, to say to you, these aren't your priorities, or, you know, what you doing, right? Yeah. That's my favorite.
Yeah. When we were talking before we went live today too about, you know, the Great Resignation and now the Great Reshuffling, this idea, this sort of cultural shift away from working your ass off all the time, right? Or living to work from working to live. And you put up a great point, which is like, you know, we when the shutdown happened and our boundaries got so blurry for those of us who, you know, are working in a professional career and we're like, you know, having to shift to the remote space. And all of a sudden, like you said, you had your work was at your breakfast bar that was in between your kitchen and your living room. So it was always available to you. Mm-hmm. Right? You'd be making dinner and then having to go send an email. And that happened for so many of us, right? And, you know, we joke about the kids are in the background, or my cat, you know, walks across the screen, which she does all the time, or my dogs bark. And it's some of the beauty of that is that their boundaries have been blurred, which humanizes us. Mm-hmm. And also the difficulty of that is that our boundaries have been blurred. Mm-hmm. And it's up to us to set them in a way that's new, right? Or it's more in our face. Like before it was like, I'll go to work and I kind of have my work self, and then I come home and I have my home self. Now that is extremely stressful on a psyche to split ourselves like that. And also it was clear cut. Mm-hmm. Now it's not nearly as clear cut. Now it's up to us to make those choices in a much different way. So how has that informed how you set yourself up for work and for life and for all the different commitments and passions that you have? Because it's not just obligations. You're not just working for a paycheck. You have great passion for your work.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what you were saying. I had to, once again, take a very good look at my work situation, right? In terms of my setup, because it was on my bar, and it would be like, I'd cook dinner and be like, oh, I can just go send out another email, or I could just do something else. And by the end of the night, I'm completely burnt out. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is so during 2020. And that was when I had also had a newborn. So that was, you know, awesome as well. So struggling. Right. And so actually that's so funny. So Mary and we had discussed about how I have Post-its like everywhere that are like inspirational sayings and things that I need to see constantly. And one of the Post-its that I had for a very long time, I don't even know where I got this quote from. It was either from a podcast or a webinar or a conference I went to, but I was talking about the struggles I was having with juggling it all. Right. I'm juggling all of these things, and there are so many balls in the air, and I can barely juggle with 3 balls. Now I've got like 20. Like, what am I going to do? And the person had said, well, some of the balls are rubber. Let them drop. Just keep the glass ones going. Those are keep going. And I've kept that with me for years. It's also one of the Post-its that's on my computer, is that just don't let the glass balls fall. There are rubber ones that you can let bounce off the floor, and they'll bounce a couple times. You can pick them back up. So in this kind of questionable time where the lines are being blurred and all of this stuff, I really had to decide for my own mental health and for my own professional and personal well-being what I needed. What did I need to be able to create? You know, to have my passions, to still give the way I want to give, without, you know, running myself ragged, which I think is, you know, the struggle that a lot of people have, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the struggle is backed up in part by the survival instinct, right? Which is kicked up very high, especially in the beginning of the shutdown, right? For all kinds of reasons. Am I going to have my job? Am I going to be safe, physically safe, health-wise? My family going to be safe? Maybe people who weren't safe around me, or maybe I got sick, right? So there's a very visceral experience of that. And also this existential question of, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing here? How do I, and I love what you just said about how do I create according to my sense of purpose, my sense of passion, whether it's artistic creativity, or it's just creating my life in the way that I want to create it, creating my experiences every day, attending to my relationship. So how did you decipher which ones were glass and which ones were rubber? What were the parameters for you?
Priorities, right? Going back to kind of the beginning of our conversation, also, I mean, in terms of work, right? The glass balls are the ones that if I do not get this done in this moment, this exact moment, that the deadline is passed and we're not going to get $10,000, right? Like that's a very easy, that's a very easy choice of which one's rubber and which one's glass. But at home, at home, right? Juggling that, or in the community, juggling that, it's, is this something I can say no to? Right. And that word for me, no, for some reason, and probably, upbringing or whatever, schooling, was negative. No was a negative word, right? It sounds negative. No was the most freeing word that I ever had come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And we joke around because we talked about the first time that I said no in a staff meeting. I was told that everybody was like,
What?
What just came out of her mouth? And it was scary and it was uncomfortable, right? It was very uncomfortable to say no, because I was always like, yes, I will get everything done. Yes. Anybody said they needed to do something, I was, yes, I would just put it on my corkboard and I would just keep going, and I had to figure out what could I say no to, and also know that it didn't reflect negatively on me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's really, really hard. I think that's really hard for women in business in general.
Mm-hmm.
To also think that if I say no, that opportunity will never come up again. Right.
Yeah.
That was my big concern. I was like, if I say no, they're going to either think I can't do it, which of course I hate when people tell me I can't do something. I'm like, oh, watch me.
Challenge accepted.
I know, exactly. Which also isn't healthy, but it's like, please tell me no and let's see what happens. But if they won't ask me to do it again, or they think I can't do it, or I'm missing this opportunity that's going to lead me down this grand road, and it's just not that. It's not always that.
So that is an experience of being and as a framework, what so many of us have. And it's not something you can just switch off either or on. I wish it were, but I see this in clients all the time, even ones who are immensely successful. It's like the opportunity is coming to me, and if I don't grab it, it'll pass me by, rather than I can create more. Right? It's like it's happening to me rather than I'm actually creating the space for the opportunity to come.
So one of the Post-its on my computer is actually from the Atomic Habits book that I just read by James Clear. And it was be the designer of your world, not merely the consumer.
That's right.
And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Post-it. I need that one, because it is. It's saying that these things aren't happening to me. I get to have authority, and autonomy over what's happening and what I get to choose to do and how I get to choose my time. Time is so precious. And I think you were one of the first people that I think you were talking to a grantee or something like that, or an artist. And we were talking about time and how much time it takes to do something, and how that is the most precious resource we have, right? Is our time. So to give it up to everything is not reality. You can't do that. So how do you want to spend your resource, right?
Yeah, I think you make a great point about it being, for women especially. I'm hoping this is changing too, but I think that and not to say that I don't see men struggling with this too, because I do. I don't want to be too general. And also, I think it is culturally more true for women because we are trained to please, and also we have to do more to be successful in a world that is controlled or dominated by men who can say yes or no, right? So when they say no, we catch it and go, okay, yes, I'll do it, right? Because that's the opportunity that I get. And that's changing too, but there's also, I think, just like as we evolve as a species, as in a culture, when I was growing up, I remember there was a mom in my community who my mother would talk about as, being puzzled by, because she would say to her children, mustn't do, instead of no. Oh. And my mom was like, this child's never going to hear no. And I understand the idea in her mind. The mom's mind was, I don't want my child to have any limits. She had 2 girls, super bright, talented girls. She's like, I want these girls to like never have to hear no, because to always believe they can do whatever they want. That was her mindset. And also, what does that do to your sense of resilience? If you never hear no, once you do hear no, you're like, how do I process that? Right. So I understood her motivation.
Yeah.
And also it's like, well, and then what's the message too of like, I can never say no because I don't know the freedom that comes with no.
Right. And the resilience piece, it made me think of course, as a performer, as when you would audition, you constantly got to hear the word no, especially as a I mean, as a 5'5", brown hair, blue-eyed, white female, like ingenue, whatever type, you got to know a lot, because there's lots of talented people out there, people who are more talented, people who have connections, all of these things. Yeah. You hear no a lot. And I have to say that's a part of what has given me my resilience, right? And actually, like, what has been so great about me going into development work and the worst thing they're going to say to me is no. I'll survive, right? Mm-hmm. Like we have. And also knowing then, which took me was a much longer road for me to get to, I can also say no.
Yeah.
And that person's not going to it's okay. I can say no to that person, and it's not going to, ruin the relationship. It's not going to, stop progress for me because I chose to say the word this time.
Mm-hmm. And it actually is so empowering or freeing. Like you said, there's so much freedom because you get to then really dig deeply into things that make you feel good about who you are and what you do, right? Once you set some guardrails, you can be like, oh, I get to do this thing. I can dig really deeply into this and really get good at it and explore it. And hi, Anna Maria. She says, thank you. She's another powerhouse professional out there. So glad to see you. And she and I talked about this too. This idea of saying no is actually a way to set yourself free. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there were others around you free too, because when we say yes to so many things, we get burned out and we get overexhausted and we get resentful, right? Yeah. We start thinking that it's always everyone else doing these things to us when we're the one who's just opened the floodgates and like, yeah, go ahead, poop on me.
Who's like carrying all the things. And you're like, no, I got it. It's fine. And then like people are walking around without holding anything. You're like, no, I can take more. It's cool. Like there's no,
yeah. And this drive of wanting to be successful and thinking that success is to doing all the things. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I see that in entrepreneurship too, as a side note, like people who believe that, there's the story of when McDonald's, I think it was in the 80s or 90s, they started offering salads. And it was like, right? They were awful. I think they may have still in some places, but like they were awful salads. They weren't good. Like that's not what they do. They don't offer a salad. You offer fast food. Do the thing that you offer, right?
Right.
You're much more successful at that. Just stay, and that's okay to have those boundaries. To be like, to be in this place where you do these things really, really well. Go after it. And that doesn't mean you can't explore the things, but.
And that's very hard in especially nonprofit world, right? Because in nonprofit world, you wear like 8,000 hats as you are running out the door and doing all the things. And it's harder to stay in your lane when there are no lanes, or there's, right. You know what I mean? Right. Yep. But then once again, it's that self-reflection of looking looking into yourself, having those people who are your mirrors, is like saying, okay, where's my lane? Where can I do my best work? And how can I best be of service? Right. That's the whole goal.
Where can I contribute the
Yeah.
best? Yeah. And that's where we do a lot of values work. Right. If you set those parameters for nonprofits have been doing this for years and years. What are your mission, vision, values? Right. And now for-profit corporations are doing this as well. In the last maybe decade or so, you're starting to see this shift into impact-driven work. What is the impact you are having? Before you and I went live today, we were talking about how nonprofits have always been theoretically impact-driven or focused. And it's been separate. It's been like the for-profit world makes the money, and the nonprofit world spends the money in ways that help people or help the planet or whatever, have their mission. We're seeing more and more the merging of these two, which is, I think, an awesome, wonderful thing, right? We're starting to understand that we need to have values in all parts of our life and work, and how those values are really they provide the navigation tools for an organization, right? So if your values are, what's the values of Arts Mid-Hudson? If you don't have them off your head, but generally speaking.
Well, no. So it's to uplift, empower, engage artists and the arts community in the Hudson Valley.
There you go. So you're not going to be going to mathletics, right? Doesn't mean you don't love the kids who do math, but you're not going to be sponsoring those or that project, right?
Right.
It gives you a focus.
Yeah. And think about how, right. So organizations talking about you need those for yourself, right? You need to be able to have those for your own person. What is your mission? I say this as someone who, it's not something that's written down. It's not something, and I'm very organized as we've talked about, and I love my Post-its and my color coordination and whatever else. But in my soul, right, I know what my mission is. I know what my mission is. Professionally in the community, for my family. And there are different, I think that there's also these different, you don't just have to be one thing. And that was a really big struggle for me. I always thought that you needed to be one thing to everybody. And it's probably like the everything to everybody. And you can't. I've tried. You can't.
Yeah. Would you care to share your mission?
Well, sure. Like I said, it's not anything written down, so it's not like I know it like I know Arts Mid-Hudson's values. But for professionally, right, I want to passionately give back to my community by using my skills. That's my mission. I have a very special set of skills, as everyone does, and if I can help the community I live in, our world, our society, that's what I want to do. For my family, it's that I want to be the caregiver, the rock, the person who that makes you feel safe. That's the role I want to have in my family. And also I want to cook good food. That's a part of that. And then with my friends, I want to be the kind of similar to my family, because my family and my friends kind of, merge. I think as you do when you get older as well, that I want to be that place that people can go and be themselves, right? Like be themselves and feel safe and bounce ideas off of, and also be the person that can be honest with them and be like, that's crazy. You you might not want to get that tattoo all the way across your face. But also know that it comes from a place of love, that there's no judgment there, because everyone is different. That was something that this the pandemic has really solidified for me, or reinforced for me, is that everyone is different. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different set of skills, different priorities. Their balance looks different than my balance. And just accepting people for that, right? Accepting people for who they are when they walk in the door. And once again, days, and I say this like, I am this person that is so enlightened. No, there are days that are so hard. It's so hard to come in and say something to me. I'm like, oh man, that makes me so mad. But overall, being that person for my friends and family is very important to me.
Yeah. Well, and that's another, again, where values come in so useful, because when, if you come in and people are somebody's in a bad mood, or you're in I'm in a bad mood, and maybe our personalities are clash that day, or my priorities are different in that day than somebody else's. When we have those common values, whether it's in a marriage or a family or an organization, we can go, okay, here's a conflict, or we're butting heads about something, or we're not aligning on something. Let's go back to those values. Let's go back to our mission and check, where are we lining up? And then what do we need? How do we need to adjust what I'm doing, what you're doing, so that we can get back into alignment? And it becomes, my husband talks about it, like that's the third party in the relationship. It's like, there's you, and then there's me, and then there's the list.
Yeah.
There's you, or there's you and there's me, and there's the values, right? The mission.
Yeah.
So let that be the arbitrator, rather than having to, fight out a conflict. Because when they said that so beautifully, like, you are who you are, I am who I am, right? If we can accept that without judgment and understand that we're here collectively towards a common goal, then it can be easier to release some of that energy around, I want to fight you. And also, I want to fight my priorities, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, or also not feel like you have that burden on yourself too, right?
Yeah.
To feel like, I've had this one friend that, she is the most lovely human being, and throughout our friendship, which has been 10, 15 years now, I've seen her very much be like a chameleon to her environment and the people. And it's only within like the past 4 years, maybe, or less, that I see her finding her balance, her voice, her priorities. And it's so beautiful. And like, I also think that's another thing, people, leaders, society don't realize, that once you find that for yourself, those are those people that I feel like you're attracted to, right? Your energy is attracted to their energy. All of a sudden you meet someone and you vibe really well, because you're in this place where you can do good work, because you have the boundaries that and
the signal is clear, right? It's not muddled, which actually brings us to our golden nugget, because I think that you had a great golden nugget that I would love you to share. So if you would, please.
Yeah.
Is it really right along those lines?
So once again, the golden nugget is one of my many Post-its. It was being authentic will radiate more pure energy than trying to be your ideal self. And by saying your ideal self, it's right what society thinks you should do, or what others think you should do. But if you can just be you, right? I joked around that I was like going to come in and be like, because boundaries and balance is such a huge topic, right? It can be in so many different ways. And I was like, what the answer is? You be you, and just like mic drop it, like walk. But if you can just be authentically who you are, you will radiate that energy around you, and you will attract those things. You'll attract, if you're working so hard, but you really need an assistant, you'll attract that assistant. If you are looking for an opportunity in the community and you open yourself up to that, it'll happen, right? Like those things will fall in place if you can just be authentically yourself.
Yeah. And that's such a hard thing to learn for some people. It was for me, for sure. I too was very much believing about that being a chameleon was the right thing to do. Like be all things to all people. When you show up, adapt to your environment and be the person they need you to be. Because I think that might be a survival or like a kind of if I look deep into that, it's like a survival technique. It's like, if I can be safe here, if I can adapt, right? And adaptability is a great skill,
right?
And ultimately, we can move past survival, right? That we're not in this present moment. You and I are not in a survival situation. You and I are in a situation where we're looking to thrive and help others thrive. So that's a different mindset. It's, actually, I get to be me. In order to thrive, I need to be me. You need to be you in order to thrive.
And the world needs you, right? They don't need like 12 of the same people. They need you, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. What a great place to end. Okay, so how can people get a hold of you at Arts Mid-Hudson if they have questions about art or development or marketing?
So the website is artsmidhudson.org, and you can go on there. And my email is melissa@artsmidhudson.org. So it's very simple.
Is there a hyphen in the website?
No.
No.
No hyphen.
Is
No,
there
all one word. No, not that I know of.
Okay. A couple of years, I'm getting old. Artsmidhudson.org. There it is. I'm putting it in the chat for you. And then it's Melissa at?
Yes, artsmidhudson.org.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We've been trying to do this. We had a snowstorm and then we had all the things happening, but I'm so glad that you got to come and grace us all with your brilliance and your wisdom. And I'm just really grateful for your friendship and to have you in our leadership community and in my life. So thank you for being here, sister.
Thank you.
Oh, Andrew says, great way to start a Friday. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
He's so supportive. Look at that. Everybody have a great Friday, rest of your weekend. If you're interested in the work that we do here at Master One Coaching, talking about how to create your own boundaries, your own sense of priorities, and how you can create your life as a leader in the world, please check out our website at masteronecoaching.com. And if you are interested in joining one of our programs, we do have open enrollment for the RISE program, which is the leadership program for conscious entrepreneurs. So if you want more information about that, you can send me a DM and we can have a conversation about it. Thanks very much, Melissa, for being here today. And everybody enjoy your weekend.
Bye.
Bye.